Hey all, it's Dinosa, and I'm doing a few videos I'm uploading tonight. But one of them is a movie that just came out recently. Is based off the sequel Anchorman. Uh, this is what been asked to do is with Anchorman 2, the sequel that came out about last week, and my opinions of the reviews and all that. And you know. It's kind of funny. It's just you everyone's it's this is like one of those movies that everyone tells you it's so funny and it's so hilarious, and I don't know, you kind of get to a point where it's like, okay, am I too old for this? Am I not? It's just like some of it in the movie I thought was hilarious, but a lot of it was just dumb. It's just really, really dumb. I mean, honestly, sequences of Pain and Gain were funnier than this. Um, it's the story. It's the continuous story of Ron Burgundy and Christina Applegate, or whatever, Veronica Cornerstone, going off into the New York for a national news network, and it has a slew of guest stars in it that are not mentioned. Some of which include Harrison Ford, Liam Neeson, there's I think Michael Madsen's in it. Just a number of things, but the story basically is circumvents around Harrison Ford's character is going to retire and he's going to pick a replacement. Well, he picks Veronica, Ron Burgundy's wife, but then he tells Ron, "You're fired because you're the worst newscaster I've ever seen in my entire life, and I don't want you in my store or in my building or anything, and you're fired." So then Ron, it's kind of an all-too story where the male will get jealous of the female's success when, rather than thinking, okay, look, you may have fired me here, but I can go get a job elsewhere. However, if they're two news people, that could be a conflict of interest between the two. So she is the head of this other program. So Ron gets all into Swibbit and says, "You have to choose the job or me." Well, she picks the job, which this is not new in movies. It was done in Die Hard, the first one. So he goes all back to San Diego and becomes like working at SeaWorld as an announcer, and he's drunk. And he makes some off the color comments, like with some of the SeaWorld instructors, which they have to be in real good shape. And he's like, "Oh, hey, baby," and all that, and how ugly the dolphins are. It was almost a pointless scene, even that. So they put him in SeaWorld, and then he finally bumps into some guy who's starting GNN, Global News Network. And of course, this is kind of a spin-off CNN, and the idea of this network would be 24-hour news all the time, which at the time in the early 80s, this was crazy talk. News 24 hours a day? No, this is nuts. And then we couldn't do it. We don't have enough news to go 24 hours a day. He says he can, and this is the promise of this multi-million-dollar investor. So then Ron takes the job. Then he starts getting together his old news team, the sportscaster, which turned to who was fired, but then he got hurt on the way out the door and turned it into a fried chicken in a restaurant. But then it turns out he's cooking bats, which that was kind of funny. And then you have Brickman, which is the guy with the glasses, which he's the only kind of funny one. He's like, "Ah," and he's actually kind of funny. But it's like total Mr. Bean from British. But he's just hilarious. And then you had the other guy, his Valtran, who becomes a photographer again, but he's photographing kitties for certain like products and stuff, and he's like the shit and that. And then he's getting paid hell of money. So he unites the team and heads off to New York before one time flipping the RV, almost killing everybody in the RV. But then they drive the damaged RV onto New York. So they they get in New York and they finally get to here, and then they run in their first competition, which is not another network; it's their own network, and they find out when they walk in the door they got the 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. slot. They're like the graveyard shift. They're like, what? That sucks. No. And they're like, well, no, this other guy named Joe Lehman or something, or Tom Lehman, on that he got the prime spot. And he's this typical Ted Daniels, good-looking, all-American quarterback. You know what I mean? It's a total, like, Stan Gable, thank you, America, for buying football. You know what I mean? Just total, it's hilarious. And that guy was kind of funny. And he's always, Ron Burgundy, he's like, hey, we got a problem. And Ron's like, no. So eventually these two clash, and they make a bet, like, such as if Ron could beat his ratings in the late night market, the 2 a.m. market, on that, then he has to change his name to, like, Joe Lame, on the Lame. Well, they come to the realization is, why don't we report the news that people want to hear, not what we have to report? So what they do is they just do a total crazy news report about, like, what everybody wants to hear about how badass America is and how this or that, and people love it, and the ratings go through the roof. But see, what then, the Pandora's box got open, and all the other networks saw this and started doing the same thing. And then he beat the guy, Joe Lame, and then he had to change his name legally to Joe Lame. So they go on with the networks. You know, Ron Burgundy's team is #1 everywhere, all over again. Yeah, Ron Burgundy tries to patch this up thing with his wife, but then he finds out she's seeing this psychologist, which is not making him happy, and he wants to kick his ass. But he's like a big wuss that doesn't know how to fight this. And then he gives like a gift to his son, which was really meant for his wife, and it was lingerie, which that was really weird. I don't even know why they allowed that in the film. Like, I'm Lace Man, and it's just, guys, really, what are you trying to subliminally plant in these kids, in these children's head? I'm Lace. Oh, so I was just like, whatever. So then that was kind of disgusting. It's hard to find great comedy anymore. It really is hard, because a lot of it has been done. But a lot of it has to do with the chemistry of the characters. And yeah, these 4 guys were successful, but really it was not the 4 guys, other than Binkman, on that it was more Ron Burgundy. You know, like, the whole movie was based on him. So he goes out and he gets an argument with his wife, and then he starts just kicking everyone's butt in ratings, and then he gets sabotaged, hurts himself, goes blind. And then while he's blind, his wife comes back, and then he baby feeds a shark from his lighthouse that he's staying at by himself back to health. They let him go. All this stuff. And then he finds out his wife has been hiding messages that his eyesight can be cured. And then he gets mad at her, and then, like, says, you know, screw you, I'm out. You lied to me again, I'm out. I'm not coming back. So then he goes off. But in the middle of all this, he gets into a fight with his boss, which is an African-American girl, which he just can't stop saying black. He's like, black, black, black. And then she kicks his ass. Like, just beats his ass in the newsroom. But then later on, when he becomes a success, he's like afraid of her. So he's like bouncing around, kind of walking around the room. She like says, you are the hottest thing, and I want to like blah, blah, blah. And he's like, hot interracial sex. It was kind of funny. That was funny. But then later on, this comes to a head with the 2 girls. So then the wife at the very end of the film or towards the very end, Ron's making his big comeback, but then his wife says, "Hey, you got to go to your son's recital, which is in half an hour. You got to make it." And he's like, "Ugh." Says, "Okay, I'll be there." Then there's this big news thing they need Ron now. And the wife said, "No, go do the news thing. The ratings will be through the roof. You got to do this." So the wife leaves, but before she leaves, she tells the boss, the new lady boss, this is like, "Bitch, I will slap you." Says, "This cat has got claws." And he's like, "Man, this is like kind of exciting here." This was kind of funny. And he's like, "Well, aren't you two going to kiss or something?" He's like, "Shut up, Ron." Which was kind of badass on his end, but it's kind of one of those things, it's badass to think it, not exactly badass to say it. It's a comedy thing, but if you're in that situation, the wisest thing you do is shut your damn mouth and let this play out. and the women will sort out their own problems on that, and that's that. So anyway, he goes on the air for this race, but his son and his wife is like thinking about his recital. He's like, "You know what? This is a joke. We're reporting news that you guys just want to see. It's not real news. We've taken you people for a ride." And I've even like pulled the story that because it would damage our people own our station's reputation. So you know, this airline sucks. I'm out. Quits. Leaves his news team. His news team was like, "No, we gotta let him go." So he races out to his son's recital. Here we go again, the big throwdown with all the news networks. Now this is the one funny scene, is that you had Joe Lame and his flunkies, and then we're gonna kick your ass. Then Ron has his buddies all of a sudden show up, and Binkman like with a trident going, "We're gonna kick your ass." Then everyone else has to have it. You had the BBC show up with the British, like, "We're the proper British thing, and we're gonna whoop all your asses." Then you have History Channel, Liam Neeson show up with the ghost of Stonewall Jackson. Then you have Entertainment Tonight with those purple dress from the 80s, which I remember that. I was like, wow, really? And then you had MTV News. Now, here's the thing. MTV News in the 80s, but they didn't get Kurt Loder, which was weird. And Kurt Loder made MTV News. I mean, and look him up. He really did make it, and MTV didn't have him, or when they authorized it, they didn't have him. Of course, there's a whole backstory of Kurt Loder being thrown out of MTV, which was insane on their ends, because he brought so much credibility to their news. Kurt Loder actually was a decent news reporter. And I mean, I remember Kurt Loder announcing to the world, to like my youth, that Nirvana's lead singer Kurt Cobain committed suicide. And you know, just talking on the television. I remember it very, very vividly on that. But you know, this is and so they have their big Royal Rumble, so to speak, and then they get through it, and they finally get to the recital, and then the Ron Burgundy's covered in blood. He's like, "Yeah, with a kid," and everything's all happy. But then Brinkman found a woman. He married the woman on the beach, and here comes the shark that they bottle fed. And then the person who saves the day was the dog, the Sebastian, I think, which is Barky's like, "Why do I keep a relationship with you? You're an idiot." On that, so then everyone lives happily ever after on the news networks, and that's pretty much about it. I think there were a few moments that were hilarious, but as a standing comedy, I can name several that were just way superior on that. Just way, I mean, heck, I could even take a Will Ferrell Talladega Nights was way more superior than this. On that, this comedy was it seemed like a lot of other actors kind of jumped on it and to piggyback it a little bit, which I thought was in bad taste, but it's still making money, I guess. But anyway, this is Dinosa. Go check it out. I think it's a DVD rental. I don't think it's a movie theater thing. But anyway, I'll talk to you later. Bye.